The Vegas Golden Knights have kind of been put into a tough position, with Robin Lehner now being injured and being out for the entirety of the 2022-23 season. As mentioned in a previous video of mine, I think it's time that we kind of look at the goalie situation for the Vegas Golden Knights and talk about how can the Golden Knights fill in a need that is greatly needed at the goalie position. Now, although the Knights do have an extremely capable goalie in Logan Thompson, who performed at a very good level last year, with the loss of Robin Lehner, there's still a big need for the backup role. So I kind of want to talk about the major ways that this team could address this need in free agency, trade, in-house, and just a couple other ways that you could do it, as well as talk about the players that they could do it with in filling that position. But first off, if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I cannot do that without your guys' help. And every form of support is greatly appreciated by me. It is truly already insane that I'm at such a small point right now for you guys, respectively, but where I'm at now at 200 some subs really means a lot to me. But let's not waste any more time. Let's kind of get right into this. Like I said, we're going to go through free agency, trades, in-house, and all that stuff on how the Vegas Golden Knights can target a need at the backup position for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, first off, let's start with, in-house. That's kind of the most obvious out of everything that we have here because the Vegas Golden Knights are in a very tough situation, cap-wise as well as players-wise. They have a lot of great players on this team, but health-wise, we've seen a lot of struggles. For example, Robin Lehner now being out for the entire year. But with Robin Lehner being injured and now being on LTIR, you free up his cap. And the fact of the matter is, though, that the Vegas Golden Knights just re-signed more players because of his LTIR. So you're still in a bad cap situation unless you move on from some players along the way. So let's look at in-house. First off, we have Laurent Brossoit, who has been with this team for quite some time, who does hold a decent amount of cap space, so you could trade him if you so wanted to. But let's look at him as an option for the Vegas Golden Knights first. He was 10, 9, and 3 last year. He had an .895 save percentage and a 2.9 goals against average. And although these numbers aren't spectacular by any means, being below 900 save percentage and almost having a 3 goals against average, a 10, 9, and 3 record by itself is not terrible, because if that means that he's your backup goalie, he's not going to get many games. So having that kind of record and being right around 500 can still keep you in the race for the playoffs. Also, let it be known that he was injured last year, so he did miss some time for himself and also wasn't playing at a top level. So you could see these numbers improve if he is in this backup role. But maybe not the greatest option. Next up, you also have Michael Hutchinson, who was 4-2-1 in the 2020-21 season because he did not play last year at all. And he had a .919 save percentage, which definitely is improved compared to a guy like Laurent Brossoit. And, which is actually very solid because some of these top goalies are like a 9.3, 9.4, and being a 9.2 is very solid. He also had a 2.43 goals against average. So for the most part, Michael Hutchinson has a better overall statistics than a guy like Laurent Brossoit. But again, with such a small pool of information, with only 7 games there that he's played in, that's not a whole lot to go by. And if he played more games, maybe those percentages would come down. But again, maybe a good option here. Now, lastly, I have a guy here that hasn't touched the ice in the NHL quite yet, but has looked very solid for the Henderson Silver Knights, which, if you don't know, is the team right below in the CHL, I believe. I don't know. There's so many different levels of the NHL. For the Vegas Golden Knights is their kind of sister team and a step down. And the guy I'm talking about is Jari Patera. I'm butchering a name. I let it be known every time in my notes I say, hey, search this name so you know how to say it. I never do. But Jari was 10, 11, and 1 last year. So again, right below 500, which is not great. He had a 9-1 or 91% save percentage, and a 2.76 goals against average. Now, the reason why I'm bringing him up, although he doesn't have amazing stats, is because when he was on the ice, he did look very, very solid. And also, the Henderson Silver Knights did not have a great defense for the most part last year. So with him being a young guy, similar to Logan Thompson came out last year swinging and played at an excellent level after playing for the Henderson Silver Knights. So possibly Jari could do the same. Now, after looking at your in-house options with guys like Laurent Brossoit, Michael Hutchinson, and Jari Patera, sorry for the name again, let's kind of take a look outside of the box. So let's not jump too far ahead of ourselves and look at the trades because, as we all know, the Vegas Golden Knights love their shiny new toys. But first, let's kind of take a look at the free agency. Now, my first guy I want to talk about here is one of the favorite options I have and will likely be in the thumbnail, and that is Jake Oettinger. So Jake Oettinger, who played for the Dallas Stars last year, is in a really tough situation. Although he's played at a great level, being 30, 15, and 1 last year with a 914 save percentage and a 253 goals against average, which, by the way, are all very, very good stats, especially if you're putting him at a backup role, and quite possibly could be a starter role on this team based on him and Logan Thompson. Even a 1A, 1B would be perfectly fine. The fact of the matter is the Dallas Stars are in a really tough space for goalies, and not in the way that most teams would be. They actually have a lot of great goalies, almost too much to handle. Truly, I think 1 through 4, all of their goalies could be a 1A, 1B for quite a few teams. So the fact of the matter is Jake Oettinger could quite very well be traded, free agency. I'm not quite sure how it works, as I believe he's still on the Dallas Stars. I think it'd be some form of either sign and trade or like tag him, because technically he's a free agent, but he's also on the roster. He is kind of in a wishy-washy area, but I think Jake Oettinger could be a very, very good addition, and maybe my favorite out of the entire list I'm going to be going through here. Now, speaking on the Dallas Stars again here, we have another Dallas Stars goalie, and that is Braden Holtby. And last year he was 10, 10, and 1, so right at 500, and a 913 save percentage with a 278 goals against average, which is slightly worse than Jake Oettinger. I think what Braden Holtby can do for you is come in on a cheaper option, be kind of a player that, could explode or could be just about average, and, a little bit of risk factor involved, but maybe you do him for the lower option on price if you're not ready to move on from somebody else to make space for him on the roster. Well, for Jake Oettinger, you might have to wiggle around some space to make money for him, but I think he could hit more of that top level, having a 30, 15, and 1 record last year. But Braden Holtby could also be a very good option. Now, our last guy here for free agency that I could see the Vegas Golden Knights targeting is Andrew Hammond. And last year, he had a 31, 20, and 7 record, again, above 500, a 916 save percentage, and a 256 goals against average. Now, out of all these guys, I think Andrew Hammond is probably one of the safest options here. Now, I'm not exactly sure what he would be requiring cap-wise, but I think he would be a safe option. Now, with that being said, a 31, 20, and 7 record, he would likely play less games, but again, you just need a backup who's able to keep you in games and be right about 500. And I think all three of these guys, Braden Holtby, Jack Oettinger, and Andrew Hammond, can all do that for you at a pretty solid level, with, I think, Jake Oettinger and Andrew Hammond having ability to play at more of a top level. And let it be known, Jake Oettinger is still very young, could prosper into elite talent, and be a starting goalie for you. Now, the kind of last thing here is trades. And although we're kind of blasting through this video fast, the fact of the matter is, there's not a whole lot to go by. The most likely scenario is that the Vegas Golden Knights hold on to what they have and they run with one of these guys in that backup role, but I think it's fun to look at all the other options here. So trades, we have two kind of options here. And one major option that I think quite possibly could happen, and one that is extremely unlikely to happen, but knowing Vegas Golden Knights, nothing is impossible. So let's start with the potential option, and that's James Reimer. In 19, 17, and 10 record last year, although he was well below 500, he still had a 911 save percentage and a 2.9 goals against average. For a save percentage and for a goals average, those are pretty solid numbers. It's just the fact of the matter that he had a well below 500 percentage. Now, if he's playing lower amount of games and he can still win you a solid amount of wins, that's, a pretty decent option. Now, the only worry here is that his cap hit a little bit higher than maybe some of the other guys you could target here. Now, lastly, for a potential trade option here is a brand new shiny toy for the Vegas Golden Knights. As we all know, they love their shiny new toys. Max Pacioretty a couple years ago, Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, Robin Lehner, all these guys are shiny new toys, and I think this guy right here, and John Gibson, could very well be a shiny new toy for the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, let it be known, you would have to give up quite a bit for him, and he's a huge risk factor with, his massive contract that's over the next 5 years, and you don't know what's going to happen to him. But the fact of the matter is, although he struggled the past few years here, he was a top 3 goalie in the league just like 2 or 3 years ago. So let's look at his stats from last year at least. 18, 26, and 11. Very, very much way below 500 compared to everyone else on this roster. But he was on the Anaheim Ducks, which were a great team last year and only really had Trevor Zegras as their top player. Now, John Gibson had a .904 save percentage and a 3.19 goals against average. And overall, their defense was not very good, but I don't think John Gibson was helping them out at all. But I did want to bring him up because he's definitely on the trade market. And although he is a massive risk, because if he plays at this level for the money you're paying him, it's terrible. But the reward would be outrageous. If he returns to form and he returns to a top 3 goaltender ability, him alongside Logan Thompson could be incredible for this team. Now, he's very costly. Like I said, he's one of the highest paid goalies, I do believe, and that's over the next 5 years. I don't know what you have to give up to get him in here, and it probably wouldn't be good news for a roster that looks very well put together with, pretty solid lines 1 through 4. I don't know what you'd have to throw in to get a guy like John Gibson on this roster. Now, like I said, it is a big reward if he returns to a top level. But the last thing I kind of want to talk about here is the in final, because, excuse me, I have an itch. In final, there's a lot of question marks still remaining. After the injury to Robin Lehner, the Knights fell into a pretty bad spot here. And even with Logan Thompson playing at a top level like he was last year, and he did that for a better half of the season, if he can continue that play through the entirety of this year, being a top 15 goalie, which he very well could be, it's likely that he's only starting about 40 to 50 games, which means even if he's playing at a top level and he's winning 75% of those games, this team's still at like a 30-10 record, and whoever his backup is could be, a huge factor in if they make playoffs or not. Because if they're playing below 500, then you're still at like a 40 to 50 range for wins, which could easily be knocked out of playoffs. So, with that being said, the Knights don't have much cap space. As we all know, although they did move on from Max Pacioretty and Dadonov, and they moved Robin Lehner to LTIR, unless they literally move another major piece or move Robin Lehner long-term, because they're likely going to have to bring in a 1-year deal for a goalie backup if Robin Lehner does return to form, unless they're moving on from Robin Lehner or moving another major piece, there's not much room. So the most likely scenario, which I do believe will be the scenario that does occur, is that the Vegas Golden Knights roll with the in-house goalies that they have, see how that goes, and if things occur, maybe the trade deadline they go target somebody and they make it work cap situation wise. I think that's the most likely, and I could see them making a move at the deadline, as they definitely are one of those teams that are able to do those flashy moves and be fine with it. But what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think they're going to go out in free agency? Are they going to trade somebody? Or are they going to stick in-house? What do you think is the best option? And would you be okay with them taking a major risk on somebody out there like Jack Ottinger or John Gibson? Comment that down below. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to you. Like I said, I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I cannot do that without your guys' help. But as always, I hope to touch some today. Hope made you smile, hope made you laugh. This is really important to me. It affects them all today in a great way, because every single day can be a great day if we all just put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.
But something deep inside won't let me quit. I swear that